We want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And this is an event that's co-sponsored by the Johns Hopkins Medicine Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Health Equity and our Johns Hopkins Medicine Office of Wellbeing. And I want to just turn it over to Dr. Lee Biddison, our Chief Wellness Officer, to do the welcome for us before we start the program.
Thank you so much, Sharita. And thank you, Marita, for being here with us today. It is such a pleasure for everyone on the call. Sharita and I had the great pleasure of doing a planning call with Marita to hear about what she's going to share with us today and talk about today. And I know we're in for an incredible honor and privilege to hear from her. It's especially rich to have this experience both during our HOPE or Honoring Our Pandemic Experiences Week, as we kick that off, as well as on National Women's Day, which seems just very appropriate and perfect. So thank you, Marita, for taking the time to be with us. We know so much of what you have shared and will share with us today will help us to move ahead in both our well-being and diversity journeys, and we're grateful for that.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you. So for those of you who have not had an opportunity to meet Marita Golden from our last session, she actually did a session for us during Black History Month. So this is a session that's sort of a part of our Women's History Month activities. And I do agree with Lee, it's apropos that it's occurring on International Women's Day. Although I will say I did spend this morning doing folding laundry and changing sheets. And I'm not sure that was the International Women's Day experience that we're all supposed to be having, but it is. But I would like to just formally introduce her before I turn the floor over to her. So I always do a disclaimer. She and I joke that we are sort of soul sisters, but we are not actually biologically related, despite the similarity of our names. So, Marita Golden is an award-winning author of 19 works of fiction and nonfiction, and she is a recipient of many awards, including the Writers for Writers Award presented by Barnes & Noble and Poets and Writers, an award from the Authors Guild, and the Fiction Award for her novel After, awarded by the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. She has lectured and read from her work internationally. She is co-founder and president emerita of the Zora Neale Hurston Richard Wright Foundation and is a veteran teacher of writing. She's taught at the University of Lagos in Nigeria and has served as a member of the faculties of the MFA program, Graduate Creative Writing programs at George Mason University and Virginia Commonwealth University. She has served as a distinguished writer in residence in the MA Creative Writing program at Johns Hopkins University and Prince George's Community College and the University of the District of Columbia. As a literary consultant, she offers writing workshops, coaching, and manuscript evaluation services. So we are very pleased to have her here with us this afternoon, and I am going to turn the floor over to her.
Thank you, Sharita. Thank you, Lee. I'm really glad to be here as part of the second part of this 3-session virtual residency, which Sharita and I put our heads together and developed a while back. I was especially pleased to learn about the HOPE project when we had our pre-planning meeting. I think that is just, as I said to the group that day, so visionary and so necessary at this time. Just a few words about what we're going to be doing in the hour and a half we have together. I see this as a session where we can do a number of things, or we can hold up our feelings, our anxieties, our dreams for what we want to do better, what we want more of, what we want less of. And I see this as a safe space where we can talk about some things that we normally don't really talk about much, a space where maybe secrets will be revealed and secrets kept. And I asked everyone to bring an iPad or a notepad because we're going to do some writing, because I'm a writer, so I'm always writing, and I think writing is very important. And I wanted you to be able to take something away from this time together. I see you working on some notes, some thoughts, some ideas that you can use to formulate an action plan to enhance your mental and physical health and well-being. And, this is a hot topic now, hotter than probably it's ever been in our lifetimes, our mental health, our physical health. And also, I want to hear your voices. Whenever I do any kind of workshop, I'm a facilitator. And we get the most out of the workshop by combining our group intelligence, our group creativity. So when we get to the sharing part, I really want to hear your voices. And I am a teacher, so I will call on people. So we don't have to worry about that. Now, before we get started, I do want to kind of hold up a space, as I said, for what we're going through right now. This is the beginning of the third year of a very difficult time for us globally. We're coming out of it, we're taking our masks off, but this pandemic is in no ways through with us. So I want to ask you, I'm going to read some of the things. I had a session with Sharita and Tamala a while back, and we were talking about all the things that we're carrying, all the things that we're dealing with right now. And I'm going to name some things. And if any of these things refer to you, I would like you to write them down. Because it's important that we actually know, when we talk about stress and strain, what we're dealing with. And when we get a clear sense of the parameters of our responsibilities and our stresses, we can deal with it more effectively. I love this song by, Roy Ayers. The vibraphone it's called My Life in the Sunshine. My life, my life, my life in the sunshine. And what we're trying to do is be able to have sunshine every day. So I'm interested, how many of you, if you are a parent, write down parent. If you are a caretaker for someone who is ill or elderly, write down caretaker. If you're living with a chronic illness, write that down. If you have both a full-time and a part-time job, if you've lost a friend or family member recently to COVID or any other illness, if you are unfulfilled in the work you do, if you are unfulfilled, are you the emotional or financial anchor for your family? And you know what I mean by anchor, the one everyone comes to solve every problem. If you're the emotional or financial anchor. If you feel that you haven't realized your dreams, even one of them, or if you have more dreams to realize, write that down. Are you at a crossroads? Are you concerned about your health? So I only asked you to write it down if it referred to you. How many of you wrote down, have a list of 3 things or more? Okay. So that gives you some parameters to think about the things that are stress factors in your life and to really see them on the page, and going forward from the day to think about how you're going to negotiate them, how you're going to weave them into your life in a way that is less stressful, because we're not getting rid of stress. That's a fact of life as long as we're alive. And let's talk about what we're carrying, because this has been a very strange time. Many of my friends, for example, who are creatives, have thrived actually during COVID. They have worked on new works of art. They've written new books. But many of us found it very, very challenging. So this is kind of a yin-yang situation where the load of COVID and all its disruptions was very heavy. But at the same time, there were these crazy, wonderful new things that we were introduced to. So we're carrying, as we sit here today, connecting through this Zoom screen, which of course is a is an outgrowth of COVID, the fact that we found ways to be in community, we're carrying the loss of a sense of safety and wellness, grief for loved ones who we've lost, political polarization, which for many of us really wasn't a big factor. But some of us in the last several years have found that we can't talk to our families about politics. Some of us are facing financial stress. We don't have faith in the government. Our children have lost a sense of security and normalcy. Everything we have to do in our lives, we have to do more of it. We have to do it better because of the responsibilities of COVID. We're fearful of getting sick and dying. We see a backlash as the rights of women and people of color are under assault. And we're anxious about the present and fearful about the future. But on the other hand, so many of us have gained a new resilience. We've done things in the midst of COVID that if somebody had told us we would be able to respond that quickly, we would not have believed it. Many of us have found new purpose. We've decided that we're going to realize dreams we thought we never would. We've quit jobs we hated. We've gone in new directions. We found new skills, and we found new important communities. So we're in this yin-yang situation, and we're trying to hold on more and more to the strengths and the resilience that have been revealed to us. Now, I'm here with you today because, like many of you, I'm sure many of you used the lockdown time of 2020 for a project, maybe that you didn't even think you would do. Well, I'm a writer, so I found myself writing a book. I wrote a book called The Strong Black Woman: How a Myth Endangers the Physical and Mental Health of Black Women. And it's a lot about being strong and how trying to be strong all the time is toxic. And that's not just for Black women, it's for women all over the world, everywhere. And one of the things, I've had so many conversations about the book. I've been very pleased with the reaction to it. And in fact, I've written a workbook to go along with the book that entails some of the life practices that have helped me maintain my balance. And I was having a conversation with a friend one day, and she said, Marita, you don't always have to call me strong. There's lots of other things that you can call me besides strong. And we made a list of what you can be called besides strong. You can call me a person, you can call me a woman who is loved, who is treasured, appreciated, valued, learning to set boundaries, learning to say yes to herself, who is seeking, resilient, wise, in need of support, going to be supported, vulnerable, allowed to have questions, allowed to have doubts, allowed to be angry, listening to her heart, hears her soul, cares for her body, is not afraid to cry, and knows that tears water the seeds of strength. So this book has been like a real journey for me. I found out that even though I thought I was the poster child for physical and mental health, that there's a lot more that I need to do. So we're going to talk about mind, body, and spirit. We're going to talk about setting boundaries. And the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to calm us down. I was sharing with Sharita before we started that the stress level in the country and the world had just gone up as Biden announced a ban on importing Russian oil. So I think we're due for a few minutes of calm. So I'm going to ask you to sit comfortably wherever you are, however you are. I'm going to ask you, we're going to go on a 2 or 3 minute retreat. And this is something that I do frequently during the day, and we'll talk about this. But let's just calm down for a minute. Let's gather our energies, gather our spirits, gather our souls, and let's just breathe for a little bit. You can have your eyes open, you can close them as long as you're comfortable in any way that makes you comfortable. And I'm just going to ask you to just breathe. And the thing about our breath is that we have the most intimate relationship with our breath. The first thing we do when we come into the world is we breathe. The last thing we do when we leave this plane is we breathe. When we want to calm down, we can breathe slowly. When we're upset, we breathe very quickly. And so throughout the day, we have the opportunity to retreat from anxiety, to retreat from confusion, retreat from pain, just by breathing. So I just want to ask you to just sit comfortably, however sitting comfortably is for you, and just breathe. Just in through your nose, out through your mouth, your lips gently parted. Sometimes it helps to have a beautiful image, whatever beauty looks for you. Maybe a rainbow, maybe a calm lake, maybe a tree. But these types of moments are so important. We get up, we wake up, and we attack the day. And from the time we get up, we're just moving. So let's just breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out very gently. And I'm going to be still. I'm going to be silent for a minute or two and just let you breathe in, breathe out as I breathe in and breathe out. You can open your eyes, or just, if your eyes were open, just bring your consciousness back to the group. I'd like to ask someone to share with us, for them, how that felt.
Hi, this is Angela.
Mm-hmm.
So the words that come to mind are relaxing, calm, at ease, free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. How many, if you have a practice of breathing or meditation or relaxation that you do at any point in the day, could you share that with the group what it means to you and how it has affected your life. Anyone? Yes, Megan?
Hi, it's so nice to meet you and see everyone. So I practice meditation and breathing every day. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 or 15 minutes, but it has dramatically improved my life balance and just being able to handle situations in a more focused and calm way. My husband's a meditation teacher, so I can't really help it. he's gonna influence me to do it every day. But just even in that moment, I didn't realize how much I needed it. So thank you. That was really nice.
Is there anyone for whom this was new? Well, that's good.
It wasn't new to me, but I will say that it was difficult for me.
Can I see who's saying that?
Sure, sorry, it's Lisa. I have my video on, so
Okay. You're saying it was difficult?
I found it was difficult to do that, to stop in the middle of the workday and really take the time that you were requesting.
Right.
It's necessary to really calm and quiet yourself. So especially when you're doing it on a computer screen where everything is active.
That's perfectly normal. And the thing about meditation is, and I know Megan will know what I mean, is it is hard to settle down. And your mind is always going off in 10 different directions as you are meditating. So if you were breathing, but you were thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, that's called meditating. And what you do is, as long as you can gently bring your mind back to, I'm breathing, it's as simple as that. I think we have this feeling that there's a perfect meditation. I don't think so. We do the best we can. And the ironic thing is that even when we feel like, oh, that wasn't a perfect meditation, we feel relaxed. We take something out of the stillness and out of the quiet that we're not even aware of, but that has a powerful influence on us. And for people who meditate regularly, for example, I started doing transcendental meditation in my 20s. And now I do, my morning practice consists of praying for those I love, starting with myself and my husband. Then I do a combination of transcendental meditation and mindfulness. And the busier my life gets, the more I meditate. Like right now, because of the book and the response to the book, I found myself feeling overwhelmed. And so one day I stopped and said, okay, Marita, what can you let go of? I made a list of everything that I had to do. I said, what can you scratch off this list? What can wait? So I let go of something, I scratched it off and put it off for a couple of months. And then I added 5 minutes to my meditation practice. But I think that I did a workshop recently and a woman said that those 2 minutes had felt like an hour, but she really did want to meditate. So I said, well, just add a minute a day. Just add 1 minute a day to the breathing process. Don't make it like, a big project. Just gently do it. And I think, Lisa, if you want to have that feeling that you had as a result of doing this, just add a minute a day. You're not getting graded. Nobody's spying on you. Just add 1 minute a day and you will feel the residual impact. Let's talk about how we wake up in the morning. How do you wake up? How many of you grab your phone the first thing? Come on now, you gotta raise those hands. Okay, yeah. Ha! Exactly. How does it make you feel? Anybody, how does it make you feel when you wake up and the first thing you reach for is your phone? Does it make you feel satisfied, good? What does it make you feel?
Too dependent.
Oh, too dependent, like an addict.
Yes, kind of.
Right, because we're all addicted to the phones. I mean, the phones were designed to create an addiction, and we are all addicted. We have an emotional relationship with our phones. But if grabbing your phone and checking your email and your news feed in the first seconds of waking up other than feeling addicted, how does it make you feel physically?
I feel anxious and I already have anxiety, but it just perpetuates my anxiety. But it's like I'm addicted to having the anxiety. Like it's so hard to explain.
No, it's not hard to explain because we've all been there and we all know where you are. And so you wake up from a good night's sleep, you reach for your phone and you're exhausted. Within 60 seconds, you're exhausted. So let's talk about this. Since we're creating, one of the things we're doing is creating an action plan. How would you break that? How would you begin to carefully, slowly break the habit of reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, since it's not making you feel good? Marilyn?
Marita, one of the things that I started doing is I started charging my phone and leaving it downstairs in the kitchen, because I would roll over and pick up that phone and my day would start, and it would start with text messages from staff and or from, it would cause such anxiety. As Denisha said, it was very, very stressful. So I started letting it charge downstairs. Mm-hmm. I don't even wake up to an alarm. Mm-hmm. Because that would give me anxiety, just the noise. And so, because it was time to get up and start, and where I was in my previous employment, I was HR director, and it would start with just an onslaught of questions and meeting requests and things like that. So I started honoring my peace of waking up in the morning and kind of just breathing. I was going to tell you the breathing exercise that you did earlier. I have chronic asthma, and it's stress-induced asthma. Mm-hmm. And I was finding myself, I was getting ready to reach for my inhaler when you called for the breathing, and I didn't even have to do it afterwards because I was able to regulate and kind of release and breathe. So I appreciate that as well.
Great. So now you know what you can do. Mm-hmm. Instead of reaching for your inhaler. And mm-hmm. so we don't have to wake up to the news. We don't have, things can wait. You know, the world's not going to fall apart if we don't answer that email today. I mean, I send people emails all the time. They get back to me when they can. They get back to me in a week. Okay, I'm going to wait a week for them. Okay, so we can put things off. So, and then let's talk about, and the great thing is there are all these apps, and there's apps for nurses. There's special apps for nurses, how to de-stress. There's apps for doctors. There's apps for anybody you can put on your phone, and it will remind you 5 minutes. But you don't need to buy an app. Why do you need to buy an app? You just need to sit down and close your door and find 2 minutes. Anybody can do that. How many of you are addicted to email? Yeah. You know, in some countries, it's against the law for employers to email their employees on the weekend or in the evening. I know in Germany and many European countries, because in those countries, the family time is considered sacrosanct, and people are not considered to be working 24 hours a day. How many of you would be willing to not do any email for a weekend, to say no email on the weekends? Yeah. You can do that. So now let's look at your action plan. Let's write some things down. One, what is the practice for relaxation that you currently have? I want you to write that down. Even if it's, I don't have a practice, I want to start one, and I'm going to start 2 minutes a day. The practice that you have, how can you enhance it? There's so much information online. There's books, there's groups. And do you need a support circle? I'm a big fan of sister-brother circles. Sister, brother, sister-brother circles. I find when I worked in institutional settings, no matter how fulfilled I was by the work, I often found working in an institution stressful. And whatever institution I was working in, I always created a sister circle, a circle of women with whom I would meet once a month for lunch, potluck dinner, just so we could share, relax, create, strategize about what it was like to work in that institution. All institutions are stressful, even if we're very satisfied working in them. So you can think about that. Also, I think it's really important not to be afraid to seek mental health care. Did anyone see the article in yesterday's Washington Post on the front page about why it's so difficult to get a therapist now? We are facing a national crisis in terms of the number of counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists that we need to care for the many people who need them. And this was a situation even before COVID, and now it's exacerbated. Last question before we move on to boundaries. In one word, I want you to write either or both. I want to create less blank, or I want to create more blank. I want to create less blank, or I want to create more blank. Who wants to share what they wrote?
I'm happy to share.
Denisha?
Sure, I wrote, and this is honestly the honest truth. I want to create more or less stress and anxiety in my life because I feel like it's at an all-time high right now.
So you want to create less stress. So the fact that you came to this is the first step, or is one of the early steps?
The first step was getting your book.
Okay.
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you so much to Sharita for this entire session, because the first session for me was life-changing. I bought the book. I also bought the book from the other woman that we had come talk about the caste system. These sessions have been incredible. So that was the first step. Listening to your experience about your life, and then getting the book, seeing some impact from other women who are mentioned in the book, it just let me know that I'm not the only one, or I don't have to internalize what I feel so much, because there are other people out there. And so starting to read that book, saying to myself, I don't always have to be strong, and signing up for this session. So I'm on this journey because of the programming that was put together.
What's your biggest source of stress other than being human?
So, you know what? I am really undergoing a transition about who I am as a person, because I got pregnant during the pandemic. So the 2 years this week that marks the pandemic, I was 8 months pregnant 2 years ago. I had my son in June 2020. So not only was I a new mother during the pandemic, my son was premature, like a month. I was learning how to be a mom by myself because of everything. You know, everybody was isolated. Nobody could come to your house. You were scared. You would get COVID. Your baby would get COVID. You saw all these people dying. And so that for me was just like, wow, I never imagined that I would be having my first child in that situation. And so the last 2 years, I have just been in survival mode, like, you know, dedicating myself to my career for so long, and then becoming a mother and like feeling like I have zero control has been, to me, like a roller coaster. And
so it's motherhood, transitioning to motherhood at this particular time.
And being able to, me and my partner, it was just us during our time with our son, like me being pregnant, us in the delivery. So us just being new parents, relying on each other. And now we had to move from Philadelphia to Maryland because of his parents being here. So it was just like so many transitions for us.
Okay, so there's a woman named Amber Thornton, Amber Thornton, who has a great website called Balanced Working Moms. She has a whole community of mothers. She has a podcast. She does group meetings on her website, through her website, where these women who are like you, mothers, talk about juggling motherhood and everything else in their lives. So I would suggest that you look her up, Dr. Amber Thornton. I think it's Balanced Working Mamas, but you'll easily find her. And then reach out for community. Get your sister circle. Reach out. Get on Facebook. Tell your mama, tell your aunts, I need some sisters. I need some other moms that I can talk to. And form your support circle. That will be enormously helpful for you. Because you're right, having a child during COVID, really, really, thank you for sharing that, okay? So look her up. Now, moving on, boundaries and asking for what you want. I'm going to read something, and I'm going to read something to you, and you know this person that I'm going to read about. You don't know her, but you do know her. And in fact, she may be you. This is from the book, The Strong Black Woman. And one of the most satisfying things about doing the book was that I got to talk to women about health and healing, setting boundaries, how hard it is, how they learn to set boundaries. And sometimes they had to seek professional help to learn how to set boundaries. But you will recognize this woman, you will recognize this scenario. I had my second child, a son, and more I began feeling I had to have a life of my own. She was an anchor child. She was the family ATM, the family therapist. I began feeling depleted emotionally. One day, when my sister, who was a homeless street musician, showed up at our apartment asking if she and her boyfriend could take a shower, my boyfriend got really protective of me and our space. We had a terrible argument, my sister and me. My mother called and took my sister's side. I finally found the courage to say, I simply don't want anyone living with me anymore. We didn't speak for months. Then I finally found the courage to go into therapy. The burden was just too much for me. The therapist helped me understand so much about myself. My philosophy was that if I'm only okay if my family is okay. And since my family was always in crisis, I was never okay. I was always on call for any emergency. She asked me why I felt it was my responsibility to make my family members happy. She told me I could love them, but I didn't have to literally carry my family on my back. And she told me that the word no could be a complete sentence. And I didn't have to explain why I said it. I'm still learning to own my yeses and nos. I realized I was a control freak. I felt if I don't fix it, it won't get fixed. Now I give my family time and space to figure out their own answers and solutions. My therapist walked me through what triggered the breakdown I'd had so I could take action to defeat anxiety, the kind that made me crash and burn. I'm in a good place now for the first time in my life, saying unequivocally yes to myself. I want you to write down either a response to either of these. I'm gonna give you two prompts. It's hard for me to say no to blank because. It's hard for me to say no to blank because. Or I said no and meant it when I blank.
Could you repeat those again, please?
It's hard for me to say no to blank, a person, because. So fill in the person's name. Or I said no and I meant it when I blank. It's hard for me to say no to blank because, or I said no and I meant it when I blank. Okay, who wants to share either of those?
I'd be happy to share the first one, because
Mhm.
I suspect this is common. So it's hard for me to say no to my mommy because she
Mhm.
is my mother
Mhm.
and has loved me so completely. Now, in
Mhm.
saying that, I will say I have learned to say no, but I must admit I'll sometimes start explaining why,
Mhm.
and I actually don't actually need to explain either.
Mhm.
But, that's been a journey, because for a long time I wouldn't, say no. And, because I'm a caregiver
Mhm.
of my mom along with my dad, there are times where I have to set boundaries because the request is not, it's like not reasonable given that I, still work full time or like other things. So, but I still find myself explaining, and my husband will walk by and he's like, "No is a complete sentence." He'll hear me launching into this explanation, but
I think, yeah,
that's mine.
and the explanation, I'm glad that you said, Sharita, that it was a journey,
Yeah.
because learning to say no is often in baby steps. And there's a great book, called "My Answer Is No If It's Okay With You: How Women Can Say No and Still Feel Good About It." And in the book, the author talks about it's so hard for us to say no because we as women are hardwired genetically to be caregivers, to be caretakers, to take on responsibility. So we're really talking about actually rewiring our brains. That's really what we're talking about, rewiring our brains. And you said that it was a journey, very much so. And even though you've learned to say no, you still find yourself trying to beg your parents' pardon when you say no, but that's okay. Because I do think there's some people like our parents that we're not going to say just no to. I don't care what it is. I don't care. You're not going to just make no a complete sentence to your parents. But as long as they accept the no, however you give it to them. Thank you, Sharita. Anybody else? To either of those.
Alexandria.
Okay, Natasha. Natasha, few.
Yes, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Yes. So I said no and meant it when I said it. And my reason behind that is a lot of people
Well,
ask
who
me to
did you
do
say
things.
no to? Who did you say no to? About what?
So it's just in general because I'm the go-to person, the person that everybody asks, hey Natasha, can you take me to the store? Or hey Natasha, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, and it can be anybody from my sister or a friend. Sometimes those things that they ask me kind of clash into my schedule. So once upon a time, I was that person that would stop what I was doing to help them or do what they asked me to do, and it kind of pushed my things back, what I needed to do. So with me turning like 35, I'm 40 now, with me turning like 35, it was like, okay, now I'm coming into my own self, and it's not a bad thing to say no, and like Miss Golden said, without giving an explanation, and it's okay, and whatever decision or however they feel about it.
That's their
If they
problem.
upset, yes, ma'am. If they upset, then that's them. But if they're not, then it's okay. Either way, I'm fine with it. And until now, it's like if somebody asks me, they'll say, "Hey, Are you free? Are you busy?
Love it.
So it's how they rewording it now. Instead
I
of just
love it.
saying, "Hey, I need you to do this," they like, "Hey, whenever you get time, can you?"
I
So
love it. I love that.
yes,
I
ma'am.
love that. And you didn't take on another job. Oh, I have to give you 90 days to understand the no. Oh, I'll help you through this. You just started saying no. And you
Yes,
weren't
ma'am.
afraid that the person would have a mental breakdown or that they would
Not
never
at all.
speak to you before. You just stood in your truth and you stood up for yourself. I love that. And
Ma'am.
it's a process. It's interesting that she said, when I turned 35, because there's certain times in our lives when we are stronger and can stand up for ourselves in ways that we couldn't when we were younger. Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else got a story?
We have Alexandria hand raised.
Alexandria?
Hi, I think that's me, right? Yeah, I usually go by Lexi, that's why I was a little caught off guard. I said no, and I meant it when I ended a 15-year friendship with a friend in the throes of addiction and self-harm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were saying yes to yourself.
Yes, for the first time.
You were saying yes to yourself for the first time. Yeah. Anybody else got a person that I'll share this. I did a workshop and a woman in the group said that it was really hard for her to say no to her grandson, who was, I guess, about 21, and he was always asking her for money. And I said, that's real interesting because that's an opportunity for you as you say no to him, to have a real conversation with him about why is he 21 years old and always asking you for money? What's really going on here? Is he having a hard time finding a job? Does he lack confidence to find a job? Does he lack direction? So that even as you say no to him for the first time, which will be difficult for you, it's an opportunity for you to talk to your grandson about your need to say no to him and yes to your money. And so a lot of times when we say no, we can do, like Natasha, no. And I think that's great. A woman can stand up and do that. But there are times also, depending on who we're saying no to, that it's an opportunity to say no to the thing they requested. But yes, to let's figure out what's really going on here. Why is it that you're always coming to me? So this thing of saying no and yes is really interesting, really, really complex. Who's having a real problem, a real hard time saying no and would like to share that with the group about why?
We had a comment from Janet saying, how do you say no? And what do you do when you feel guilty after saying no?
Of course you're going to feel guilty because you're human. I mean, even Natasha, strong as she was, won't admit it, but she probably did feel some guilt. But that's to be expected. But the primary thing, you feel the guilt, but say no anyway. You feel the guilt, but you say no anyway. And the thing about it is the more you get comfortable saying no and seeing that the person you said no to has not really suffered. See, you feel guilty because if I don't say yes, there's nobody who will give them that yes. I'm the only one who can give that. No, people are very resilient and very very smart. They'll find somebody else to say yes. It just that won't be you. So the guilt and the pushback are part of it. That's to be expected. Anybody else got some wisdom on that?
Alicia?
I think it's important to think about when you're feeling guilty about saying no, is to think about what you're afraid of losing. And often we're afraid of losing love. And the people who are our friends and family, their love of us is way deeper, okay? It's not going to be diminished by a no, even a series of no's. And it's important to remind yourself that you deserve to be treated with respect. I loved it when Natasha said people would say, do you think you'd have time to? You know, if you could possibly work it in. I love that. So she's now getting the respect that she wasn't accorded before, but she had to demand the respect. She had to demand. I find it helpful to ask when I say no to this, what will I be able to say yes to? Oh, saying no doesn't mean that you never say yes. You're only saying no because you can't do it. You don't want to do it. It's an imposition, but there's a million other things that you're going to say yes to in terms of your relationship with that person. That's a guilt question there. That was a guilt question. So for those of you who are still struggling with no, you want to think about what I would write. What am I afraid of losing? And is the fear a realistic fear that I'm going to lose that thing? Also, sometimes we can be in codependent relationships with the person that we often say yes to. There was a woman in one group who had a younger sister who was the baby of the family, and everybody always said yes to her. And she found herself doing what everybody else in the family did, and that was always saying yes. And she was seething with anger. She was smiling as she told this story, but she was seething with anger as she told it. And I asked her, what are you getting from saying yes? The question is, there's something that you're getting from saying yes. And that's the thing that you need to figure out. And you don't want to be in a group like this a year from now and still mad as hell at your sister. So you really do have to deal with it. You really do have to deal with it. And also practice low stakes. You don't have to start saying no to your mother immediately. The kids are in the car with you and you don't want them to use their cell phones. Collect the cell phones and put them up in the front with you and say, we're now going to have a conversation. A conversation, okay? So start with small things and you work up to big things. Anything else about setting boundaries and asking for what you really want or anything you want to share? I will say this, that my spiritual practice of silence, going on silent retreats, I practice days of silence where I will wake up in the morning and I'll tell my husband today's day of silence, has been enormously helpful in developing a relationship with my inner Marita and my instinctive sense of what I need and what I want. And so I think it's really important for you all to develop a relationship with your inner you that's separate from your relationship to anybody else. Because your inner you, who you will only meet in prayer, in silence, on long walks by yourself, in breathing, knows what you need to do, and she will make you strong. Trust me, she will.
Marita, I wasn't sure if Tiffany, it looks like Tiffany Laria has a hand up, or is that from earlier?
Sure, because I can't see everything.
Yeah, Tiffany, did you have a comment, or is that from earlier? It might be from earlier. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Great. Yeah, help me out with the technical.
Yeah, that was from earlier.
Yeah, and anything else about either anything that we've gone through so far?
Can I just make a comment? I just wanted to sort of re-amplify something you said about saying yes to things you don't mean to, and then you're walking around resentful and angry. So one of the other reasons, to say no when it's really something you can't do, don't have capacity, is then like you release yourself from all of that pent up anger and frustration, because it just, I would find that I would agree to do things and then I was overwhelmed and then I would be angry and lashing out. And sometimes not at the person who, like, it wouldn't even be, it might be like at my husband, who wasn't actually even the person that asked me about what it is I didn't want to do. And then I realized, okay, that is not, those aren't appropriate dynamics. So I actually need to say no, so that there's just not this generalized resentment, because, we do carry that, like, you think you're not, but if somebody's imposing, or the request is just not reasonable given your own constraints, even if they're looking and thinking, well, it looks like you have time to do it, but you don't. I found that was really helpful, like, in not sort of carrying around like little resentments about things.
And it's so interesting, the young woman that I would share the story about resenting her sister, what she said was, my sister will call and she'll ask me to do something. And I always say yes, because, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. So I said, why aren't you doing anything? Why aren't you doing something for you? Why are you just sitting there waiting for your sister to call? Why are you not doing something? And so what she was signaling was, I think, a fear of having time for herself. Many of us do have a fear of being alone with ourselves. Because if we're alone with ourselves, our fears, our doubts, our unhealed trauma will fill our minds. So we stay busy, helping my sister out, helping my brother out, solving their problems, because I'm afraid to solve mine. And that's where seeking professional help comes in. And before we move on to the last section, I would like to throw out to the group, because I was very disturbed and very concerned, Sharita, and I definitely want to engage you about this. The article that I referenced earlier that appeared in the Washington Post yesterday on the front page, that we're facing a national shortage of mental health professionals. What can someone do when they have sought out 50 therapists and not one can take them? Either they've got so many clients or the insurance. What can someone do while they are waiting to get an appointment that can heal their life? I have some ideas, but I'd really like to hear what the group thinks about that, because that's really important. What do you do while you're waiting? How do you try to get some healing as you're waiting to be healed by a professional, with the help of a professional?
I think, there are various things, but I think finding someone in your life that has the emotional bandwidth to support you in that waiting, to help you navigate the time between getting connected to a therapist. And then the other thing I'll add is, if you do have a spiritual support system, leaning heavily on that in the interim as well.
Right. I think that's really good. Anybody else? If you have a faith community, that's really important to you. Anyone else?
Carolyn has a comment. Has her hand.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Rita. I was just going to say, anything that has you understand that you're part of a shared bigger humanity and allows you to establish some social connection, because depression can be so isolating and so lonely.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm one of these people that for many years, the internet was the devil. I was not very active. And because of the pandemic and because of this book, I just dove in. And I have found that it's just amazing how this structure has created so much in the way of communities. I mean, before the internet, when I was a single parent, I started a single parents group of 6 or 7 single parents who just got together once a month, hung out with our kids. In fact, it's how I met my husband, who I've been married to for 25 years. He was a friend of someone in the single parent group. I have a group of women that I hike with once a month. I have a group of women writers that I get together with occasionally. I have a group of women that when the pandemic, we just would each Wednesday would meet on Zoom. So these sister, brother, sister circles are life-saving and life-giving. And also, I think that our minds are very, very powerful, enormously powerful. And in the book, I talk about stories and the power of healing stories and how our life is a story. Our life is a story that we're writing with every action that we take. So anything else about that? But yeah, I think, Alexandra, I agree with that. That's what I was going to say too. So that you can't just say, you know, you got to get some support. And usually we're surrounded by people who can give us answers to our questions. We just don't take advantage of them enough. Anything else before we move on to our bodies? My body, myself, your body, yourself.
Hi, this is Bridget. I think the one thing I wanted to add is I think we're all so tied to the hustle and bustle of our day. And one thing I did for myself personally this year is making sure that I take a day off every month, no matter what it is. It's a day to myself. It's a day that I want to hang out with somebody, but just taking that mental break from work has really helped me to know work is going to be when I get back. And the time that I'm taking is really to just, you know, re-energize and recenter myself. And I think it's only been, we're in the month of March, but January and February, I mean, I'm telling you that taking those days off and those months has really just helped give me a renewed strength and energy that I haven't had in such a long time. So.
Thank you. And someone put in the chat group, journaling. Journaling is very helpful. The thing about your journal is your journal doesn't judge you. Your journal just accepts everything you say. And it's your private place. You can say what you want to say. And I think journaling is can be very healing. Now let's talk about our bodies. I remember when I was, there were experts that I interviewed for the book. And one of them is a cardiologist at Washington Hospital Center. And she said that there are so many things that women need to know about their bodies that often they don't know. You need to know how much you weigh, or are you afraid to know how much you weigh? If you're afraid to know how much you weigh, why are you afraid to know how much you weigh? What's your blood pressure? What's your cholesterol? What's your family health history? And too often in our families, we really don't talk about those things, but those are really crucial. Blood pressure, cholesterol, yes, you actually do need to know that stuff. When I turned 50, I did a little exercise because it just is when Natasha turned 35. When I turned 50, that was a real crucial point for me. And I decided that I was going to stop wearing makeup. I was only going to just put a little lipstick on, but I wasn't going to all that other stuff. And I did an exercise where I looked at my body for the first time. I got naked and stood in front of the big bathroom mirror. And usually we don't look at our bodies. We shower, put on deodorant, lotion, and then get dressed. But I looked at my body as I had never looked at it before. I looked at my toes, my bunions, my corns. I looked at my skinny legs. I looked at, the hips, that are they too big or are they not big enough? I looked at the flab. I looked at the little sagging breast. I looked at everything about my body as it was and thanked it and loved it. And for the first time in my life, I looked at my body with absolutely no judgment. And from that point on, something changed in me radically. And from that point on, people started saying things to me that they never said before. I mean, people said, Marita, you're beautiful. And what they meant was not that my physical body had not changed that much, but that I had attained a kind of confidence and acceptance that radiated outward. That's the beauty that they were talking about. And so I think it's really important. We take our bodies for granted. We really take our bodies for granted. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to write 2 short letters. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes for this exercise. I first want you to write a little note, a little thank you note to your body, thanking your body for something. I mean, I had one woman in a group who had lives with a chronic illness, a very debilitating chronic illness. And she said she just thanked her body for enduring, for enduring as she struggles with that chronic illness. So what do you want to thank your body for? And then I want you to write a little note from your body to you, giving, and your body's going to give you a grade on how you care for it. So I will give you about 5 minutes for that, for those 2 little notes. Okay. You know, our bodies are these absolutely amazing entities, and we just take them for granted. My mother and father died when I was 20. My mother died when I was 21, and my father died when I was 23. And my mother died of a stroke, her second stroke, and my father died of a heart attack. And so they gave me a genealogical and biological legacy of heart attack and stroke. But I decided that I was going to be very healthy, and I was going to do everything I could do to live longer than they did. And when I found out that I'd had 2 silent strokes, which was one of the reasons I wrote the book, I realized that if I had not been militantly healthy, practicing meditation, watching my diet and exercise from my 20s, that biological inheritance could have killed me early. So our bodies are these amazing things, and we really owe it to them, to these bodies, to really care for them. And yet, even when they're weak, they can do such amazing things. Before I hear what you guys wrote about your bodies, I wanted to share something, a little graph I wrote about a body from the book. I gave myself permission in the book to reimagine Fannie Lou Hamer and Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman as sheroes. And I imagined if they had been able to talk about their pain and their vulnerabilities, not just sitting on the bus or leading demonstrations, because we don't make a space for strong women to also talk about their pain. And this is me reimagining or channeling Fannie Lou Hamer. And she's talking about her body. I was one of the wretched of the earth. I was a sharecropper, the daughter of a sharecropper. The rich black fertile soil of Mississippi was in my bones. If I was mute and couldn't talk, my body could tell my story. My arms would tell you how, as the youngest of 19 children, I reached out to be held by a mother and father and brothers and sisters who sheltered and loved me. My hands would remember starting to pick cotton when I was 6. My feet would tell you about the feel of rags against their skin because I didn't have no shoes. My stomach would recreate the sound of being hungry all the time as a way of life, because that's the way everybody around us was living. I had polio. My womb would whisper and shed the tears I cried when I miscarried and then got sterilized without my knowledge. And after I was beaten in the county jail for working with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, to register voters, my body never healed. How could it? When I said I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, I was sick. I was tired. And Fannie Lou Hamer testified before Congress, I think it was in 1961 or 2, about the fact that Black people in the South could not vote. And she famously said that she was an activist because she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. But she also, when we understand the body that this very strong and impactful woman inhabited, she was publicly saying also that she was sick and she was tired. So we made a space where she could say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired around vote, not having a vote. But we also need to make a space for women like her to say, my body is sick. My body is tired. And to think that she was suffering all of that and became a history maker and a history changer with a body that had suffered that much. So our bodies are just amazing, and we have to love them and we have to care for them. So I'd like to hear some of your love letters to your bodies and the grades your bodies gave you.
Mrs. Golden, were you just speaking on Harriet Tubman? I'm sorry, I missed that whole.
That was Fannie Lou Hamer.
Hey, okay, thank you.
Ms. Golden,
I think Shanique, you have your hand up.
Okay.
Oh, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Sorry, that happens a lot. So for my body, my thank you letter to my body, it says, I thank you for being strong and resilient. I thank you for being adaptive and calm. I thank you for being patient and flexible. You are amazing.
Okay.
So my body is talking to me. It says, Dear Shanique, if I were to grade you on how you take care of me, I would give you a C- for now. It comes in waves. You're inconsistent when it comes to the work that needs to be done, but you've also been making great changes that I can't even read that. You've also been making great changes that has impacted me. I am strong. I can take it. I'm ready for more. I'm ready to be a priority.
Okay, why did you get a C-? What do you need to do that you're not doing?
I think I need to move more. I'm so stagnant. Of course, I make better food choices these days, or actually for the past couple years, I've been making great food choices. But the only time I move more is if I'm involved in like a challenge. So I think just being self-motivated enough to kind of get up and do things. And it's just because I'm so busy with everything else. So
yeah, I mean, and exercise, intentional exercise. See, it's one thing to be busy, just doing stuff all day, but intentional exercise designed to both heal and strengthen your body is enormously important. So there's no excuse, Shanika. There's groups online, there's gyms, you got girlfriends whose bodies would probably give them a D. You need to get in touch with them and start walking. Okay.
Yes. I joined a social club when I'm new to the area, so I joined the Black Girl Social Club. I don't know if anybody heard of it, but I suggested like we go on hikes, because I actually like to do things like that. Go walk the trails.
There's a group called Black Girls Hike.
Okay, I'm gonna look into that.
And you can walk by yourself,
Yes.
And you can pop a tape in, and you can go to YouTube. YouTube has about 8 million different forms of exercise. So you don't have to always have your friends.
Yes, definitely.
So your body's telling you, now this time next year, Shanique, I want that C-, a B+.
Yes.
Well, you have marching orders. So I think Natasha has her hand up if she still wants to go after that. Natasha, is your hand up for this question? Maybe, or is that from earlier? Or do you need to unmute?
This is a letter to my body.
Okay.
Natasha, I'm scared of you. Natasha, I'm scared of you. Probably told your body no. Go ahead. Natasha, go ahead.
I think you just need to unmute your sound, either your Zoom sound or your phone sound. Unmute one of them.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How about now?
Yeah, but there's an echo. Well, do we want to move on while Natasha's trying to do the technical?
Yeah, Marilyn, do you want to go while Natasha's sorting out her sound?
I do. I wrote on, thank you for caring the letter to my body. Thank you for carrying me through this walk. Thank you for not giving up and pushing through the birth of my children, for working, loving my husband now. Thank you for your strength, for not giving up when you were tired. I am and well, I'll stop there before I start getting emotional. But
why not get emotional?
Well, I wrote this, Marita. You're kind of like my pastor. That's problematic. But I wrote, and thank you when you were tired and for not giving up when you were being abused.
Okay. Okay.
And then I gave myself a B-. I do intermittent fasting.
Right.
So this is from my body to me. Thank you for doing your intermittent fasting. Thank you for taking the steroids that you're given so often for your asthma that are causing pains in your back and your hands and your legs. And thank you for not wearing that waist trainer. So.
You said some interesting things. You thanked your body for loving your husband. And I thought that was really beautiful, because one of the things that we do with our bodies is we have intimate relationships, body to body. And I thought that was very beautiful. I mean, we can hug our husband, and then when you said you thanked your body for not giving up when you were abused. Thank you for sharing that. That's so important that statement not be kept closeted. Every time I do a writing workshop, say a memoir workshop, half of the women in the workshop have been abused.
Mm-hmm.
It's so rampant, and it's a story that needs to be in the light of day. It's nothing to be ashamed of. So thank you for thanking your body. And intermittent fasting, which I do also, is just simply not eating for long. For example, say you have your last meal at 8 o'clock tonight, and then you won't eat another meal until 6 o'clock the next day, which basically just gives your body a rest. And your body does thank you for that. Thank you, Marilyn. Anybody else? Anybody else? We got 5 minutes.
I think I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you, body, for the creation of life, for holding my children in a womb and creating such strong, beautiful women. Thank you, body, for having a sound mind and releasing dopamine to feel pleased, serotonin to feel happy, oxytocin to show love. Love, Natasha. Natasha, welcome to the journey of well-being. You have changed for the better. I love when you walk to increase strength with my heart. I love to hear you laugh. Your smile lights up the room. Continue doing great for me, and I will do the same. You deserve an A for effort.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you. And the other thing is that our bodies create life, which is probably the most amazing thing. One of the most amazing things. They self-heal and they bring life into the world. One or two more. These are beautiful.
I'm happy to share mine. So I said, dear body, I'm grateful to you for allowing me to carry and deliver Andrew. Andrew's my son, my only child. I had to have a surgery on you before I could even safely get pregnant. But through God's grace, you were able to conceive and carry Andrew to full term. So my body's dear Sharita, your body gives you a B- for caring for me. You are doing much better with exercising me, but I could use more. Thank you, though, for not perming my hair anymore. I like being curly and unprocessed. And that last part, because that was any of you who were with me through my transition during the pandemic, that was a journey for me. So I feel like I've come back to like my natural state. So, and I have eczema on my scalp, so my scalp is very grateful to no longer be processed. Like,
right.
Anyway,
how did it feel to do that exercise emotionally?
I mean, you mean like in general, me?
Yeah, just in general. How did it feel to write that letter and to get a grade from your body?
I mean, I know for me, it makes me sort of refocus on what I need to do, and just, reminding me that, like, we sort of use our bodies or abuse them, but then like our body does talk back to us, and it will tell us when we're not caring for it in the way it needs to be cared for.
Exactly. It gives you a grade every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now you may ignore the grade, but yeah.
I feel like for me, it also made me aware, like, don't not think of your body until it's time to think of your body.
Thank you for saying that. Right. Couldn't say it better. Don't say it again, Denisha, say it again.
Don't not think of your body until it's time to think of your body.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Great. So we have 2 or 3 minutes, and I hope that you all who needed an action plan now have some language and some ideas that you can use for an action plan that will enhance your mind, body, spirit journey, because that's really what it is. Whether it's meditating for a minute, 2 minutes on Monday, 3 minutes on Tuesday, whether it's trying intermittent fasting, which is not as hard as it sounds. And there's plenty of information out there about how to do it effectively, or how to begin the journey of saying no. That there are people who can say no, and you can be one of those people who can say no. Say no to what overwhelms you, and say yes to yourself.
Well, thank you, Marita. This was a wonderful session. I wish we could do this every day. We probably could all benefit every day.
The idea is that you all do it every day.
Right. But I do
your
think
own
that.
Way. But I love that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. That means a lot, saying that.
Yeah. We just want to thank you all, and I think it gives us some ideas how the offices of diversity, inclusion, and well-being can sort of work together to facilitate some of this kind of sharing moving forward. So,
and I want to thank everybody for sharing, for coming to and being willing to share, to create a community.
Yes. So thank you. We invite you to next month's session. We'll be actually using writing as a tool to healing. So look out for that announcement coming up. And again, thank you all for your transparency. It can be very challenging on Zoom, but we just really thank you for being so interactive and participatory and sharing. And we just have to have each other's backs and be accountable to one another for reminding each other that we have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others.
And get your sister circles.
Yes.
Your sister circles. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.